The views and opinions expressed in these historical letters that may contain vernacular used in the World War II era, the post-war era, and the Cold War era do not reflect the views and opinions of any of the individuals involved with this project, including, but not limited to, the podcast's creators. Good morning, Jamie.
Good morning, Allison.
How are you doing?
I'm good. I got coffee.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful day.
It is a beautiful day.
We have, and these, see, I like when we have 3 letters. We have 3 letters today.
Yep.
And all of these are to Jeanne. We are still in Hutchinson, Kansas.
Yep.
And we know Sweetie's having a time at that.
We still are in Hutchinson, Kansas. And I will say to our listeners, if you hear a cat in the background who is deciding it's time for his breakfast, though it is not right now, and he is making some little meows, he is currently, normally I don't have my cats in the room with me, but this cat's currently in recovery from a surgery that he really needed to get. He had an issue, and he is now wearing a cone for 3 weeks. He's not a fan of that. He's in great health. I'll probably put a picture of little Franz up on the screen so people can see this cute little guy. But if you hear a little rustling, it's because he's currently in a large crate, so he's not allowed to jump. And he's attempting to jailbreak from the crate, which is ironically kind of relevant to this episode and some of the content that Sweetie's going to give. But if you hear the meowing in the background, it's just a little guy recovering that would like to jailbreak from his temporary lodging in this room. So before we get started, please check out any updates to our website at www.lovesweetiepodcast.com. If you could please like, share, and subscribe if you're one of our YouTube audience members, we very much appreciate that. And then if you could, if you're listening in to the audio only on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, if you could leave a review, we very much appreciate that. There's little Franz again. Shout out to Metro Vet and Valley Forge. They did a great job with him. He just doesn't like being confined for his own sake, so he doesn't hurt himself. He's a little guy. So, all right. But getting started with the first letter today from September 13th, 1944. 526 East 1st, Hutchinson, Kansas, September 13th, 1944. Dear Jeanne, we got your letter this morning. Pretty quick mail, seeing as how it was mailed on the 12th. Yes, I see you've been busy, and maybe I shouldn't gripe about your not writing, but we haven't been getting any mail, and so I've got to gripe to somebody. And don't you think you're smart to bank all that money? I do too. If you keep that up, you'll soon be ranking right along with the Fords, the Rockefellers, and the Morgenthaus. Really, though, you should write to Marion. That's a crying shame. What do you do? Saucer and blow Frank's coffee? Are you a nurse or a messman? Really, ugly, you mustn't lower yourself so. Yeah, so Jean's saving up some money. I love her little notes here about Ford and Rockefeller.
I've never heard of the Morgenthaus.
Never heard of the Morgenthaus. Yeah, me neither. But Ford, certainly.
Oh, Ford's Rockefellers, yeah. Well, I live in southwestern Pennsylvania, and so there's a very strong Carnegie. And then there's the Rolling Rock Club, and so my husband always tells me, that's the Rolling Rock Club. We're all the Rockefellers and the Carnegies every time we drive past it. So, but never the Morgenthau, so now I'm going to have to look into that a little more.
I thought Bob wrote to you once and told you not to join the Red Cross and then the services. He must believe you were serious about Bill. I believe that he'll be the one who is going to be most critical of the man you decide to marry. And two, I believe his opinion will hold quite a bit of weight with you. Am I right? I thought once I wanted a car more than anything, but I didn't think I could afford to get one. I guess that was once when I made the smart decision, for we'd still be in debt. When we came down here, too, I thought I'd give the last cent I owned to have a car, and no doubt when I leave here I'll feel the same way. But we can get by, and I guess we will, too, for we couldn't pay the exorbitant prices the war has caused. So I guess we'll walk, wait on stuck cars, and gripe. I didn't stop to think about your putting the ring on the wrong hand, but since the wish wasn't too good to begin with, I believe you could have a friend wish it on for you again, and then you could put it on the right hand.
Hmm. So a little bit more information about the friendship ring.
Yeah,
It
from
didn't
the
work,
previous.
I guess.
Yeah, I guess not. But also, she didn't want to buy a car. They couldn't really afford it. I'm not sure it would have mattered because all the gas is being rationed anyway. Where are you
Stupid
going to go,
Louis.
sweetie?
Well, I think, yeah. I mean, she is trying to like get a point across to Jeanne where she's like, you have to make your own decisions. And it seems like Jeanne is struggling with this decision about Bill.
For sure. Yep. I don't believe you should be moody. That's bad. Though I must admit, I've been feeling a little off color myself. Why don't you chuck the place and come down for a visit? The Kansas State Fair starts here on Sunday. Lou has the following Wednesday off, so come on down and we'll all three go out and gawk together. Do you think that by not seeing Bill you'll be able to decide how you really feel about him? Thanks for Frank's address. I haven't written to either of the boys very well, but now that I'm sure of the addresses, I'll try to do better. I think KM is just as cute as can be. I do have a picture, but I don't believe it is as good as a proof I saw. Daddy really did himself up proud on those, didn't he? There might be a visit here from Jeanne coming up to Kansas, or at least if Sweetie gets her way. That would be the case. And they just want to people watch. Sometimes that's the most fun.
Well,
Thing
they
to
all
do.
three love each other. They have a great time together. This was
Yeah.
something when they went to Atumwa, she's like, "Oh, we always spent so much time with Jeanne whenever she was here." So I can imagine that would probably be lovely for all three of them to go out there to the fair. But yeah, I think Jeanne's. I love these because we're starting to get a little bit more insight from Jeanne. We don't see letters from Jeanne, so it's nice to like learn about her a little more. And she definitely she's going through a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's really, I think it's probably really hard for Sweetie because she can't really get her that kind of support in Kansas.
Yeah. We saw Going My Way, but no good one to speak of since. They held it here for 2 weeks. Tell your basement superintendent that Hutchinson, before the Navy came, was about 29,000, about the size of Atumwa. I believe there is a college, but it is very small, and so far I've not found the campus. The town is quite old, and the resident section shows that there's quite a bit of wealth here. There are also lots of Mennonites with their black bonnets and whiskers. As many times as I've seen them, I still stare. I'm enclosing a note to your friend. Don't give it to her if you don't want to. Do you like the song It Could Happen to You? Lou is okay and said I should have forgotten to send the ring, so you'd have to write more. Goodbye, good-lookin'. We sure waits for your letters. Love, Sweetie, and Lou. Betty Ellen Jones McGee had a dark-eyed, black, curly-headed baby girl, born August 4th, 6 pounds, 7 1/4 ounces. A.M. Yeah, there's... Okay, I'm gonna let him be done. What are you doing? Really? He's literally laying down with a cone against the side, just like going like this to make noise. And he's playing with the dark out cover through the bars.
You should leave all that in.
His cat is going to jailbreak. And it's really adorable. It's really adorable, but he's not getting his way.
No, sir. Props.
Speaking of going my way, not his. So, yeah.
This is funny because in the same letter, Sweetie calls Jeanne ugly and good looking.
Right. Isn't that great? She's like, hey, ugly. Or what it was on the other screen. What was the actual phrase? It was
really ugly. You mustn't lower yourself, so.
Yeah, you mustn't lower yourself. And then she ends it with, hey, good looking. So yeah, she's just messing. I love that she finishes that out. And then, what the other thing is, she mentions a baby being born here, and very early in the letters there was a reference to a McGee. And this seems to be, I would guess, because she knows the name, a McGee. We get the full name for her, so I'm gonna have to do some investigating so we can figure out from that previous letter who the McGee was. Now, that McGee was not held in high esteem. Something was going on. I remember there was an issue there. But seems to be friend of the family, if she's mentioning it to Jeanne. probably something in a family in Iowa. So a curious note there, but she's just passing on the news. The other interesting thing here is the Mennonite community in
Yes.
Kansas,
Mhm.
which in Pennsylvania, Jamie, we are not entirely unfamiliar with such communities. And of course, in Pennsylvania, the most famous is going to be the Amish.
Yes.
Um,
I actually, when I read this, it was really funny.
mhm,
Back in 2018, my husband and I went to a party out east in Honeybrook, which is very, very small. It's a small like town, and it had we stayed at like this nice little hotel in Honeybrook, and there was so many Amish everywhere. And it was a beautiful, quiet little town. And so you could always hear when they would come through. And I'd always run to the window to go see the Amish like coming through. It was really funny because and every time my husband would be like, "Mm." So the
mhm,
last day that we were there in the morning, very quiet,
mhm.
Sunday morning, foggy,
Yeah.
and I hear clip, clop, clop. And I went,
Yep.
I'm not going to answer.
Mhm.
Aren't you going to run up and go look? And I was
Yeah.
like, no, I'm not. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So this is her first experience with
Yeah,
probably
with
these.
really seeing that. And these communities did move out to the Midwest. You know, there are whole sections of them that did migrate in those directions. We know that Pennsylvania Dutch, the Amish area is still very, very big, was one of the main spots that these types of groups went to. Now, on my mother's side in central Pennsylvania, when I would visit my grandparents, they were directly next to Amish communities in the Lehigh Valley. Basically, it's not Lancaster is the most famous, I think, for Pennsylvania for people just coming through the state, but there's Amish in different areas, and theirs was what we considered the Lehigh Valley Amish. And, you know, we still see when we go up there to visit the area, we like to go to this one store. It's run by, I think, the Mennonites up there. And so they still tie up the horse-drawn carriage, I guess basically it is. The horse-drawn wagons and things. You can't use credit card, but we love shopping there because it's so good.
Yeah.
You know, the place is called, shout out to them. I doubt they have a website. It's called Hoover's up in Pennsylvania, if you're
I'm sorry,
listening
what?
from Central PA. The place is called Hoover's. It's only open at certain
Okay.
times. And we always like to go shopping at Hoover's. So when we go. But yeah, I grew up around this simply when I was visiting my other grandmother and grandfather was around these communities.
I'm
And
so sorry.
so
I have a cat in here too.
I don't know what's with our cats today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Our cats.
No.
They want to be part of the podcast.
They want to be a part. Yeah, the cats are breaking into the podcast. One's climbing up your coffee cup. For sure. You know, they're like, it's episode 30. Don't we have a part yet?
Yeah, they want to be included, you guys.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So
But anyway.
anyway, so yeah, so she's like getting these experiences and seeing like,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yep. It is surprising when you hear I think you said it best, like the clip clop down the street and you're like, oh, and then like also when you're passing on the road, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Because you're like, that is an animal and I'm in a car. I mean, they're wonderful people. Absolutely wonderful
Yes.
people.
Yes, absolutely.
Mhm.
So Sweetie is, like getting back, I think, to her old self.
Yeah, for sure.
She's humorous and she's
Mhm.
passing along this information, and she's also really trying to be there for Jeanne just as much as she can in Hutchinson.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay, and that leads into our next letter of this episode. And this comes only 4 days after the last letter. So this is from September 17th of 1944. 526 East First, Hutchinson, Kansas, September 17th, 1944. Dear Jeanne, we received a nice letter from Bill Gruding a day or two ago that really deserves answering. However, I'm struck by this idea, or if you like, problem. If you are adhering to your original plan of not seeing Bill for a while, during which time I presume you intend to more clearly define your feelings toward him and determine the basis or footing of your future relationship, would my writing to him complicate things? His letters are shall we say, a discourse on the merits, etc., of one Jeanne Demery, R.N. He makes no bones whatsoever of his feelings, his hopes, and desires. If I write to him, is he not likely to misconstrue the true meaning, friendship, and think I mean it to be sort of encouragement for him? I can't get away from a persistent feeling that he believes we're welcoming him into the family, even though you've not yet made such a decision.
Mm.
Okay.
This is heavy.
Yeah. She's stuck in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
She wants to be nice to Bill. They've, hung out with Bill and they get along. She just wants to be friends with Bill. But is it going to be seen a certain way when Jean's still making up her mind about
Mm-hmm.
whether or not she wants things to be permanent with Bill? So Bill's waiting. Bill's writing to them in Kansas. Well, that's great. She always likes more letters. She wants to write back to encourage more letters keep coming her way. But she doesn't want to get in the middle here because it could be misconstrued. I do like that she calls it a discourse on the merits. I feel like Chester would have written
Chester,
letters like
thank
that.
you. I was like, there's Chester. I always really
Right?
like when Chester's peeking through.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever hear that song? You can maybe cut this out, but it's called Case of You by Joni Mitchell.
No, I'm familiar with Joni Mitchell, but not that one.
That one is one of my favorites. And she says, you told me that love was touching souls, and surely you touched mine because part of you pours out of me in these lines from time to time.
Oh, that's great.
I know, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I see part of Chester pouring out of Sweetie's lines from time to time. It always makes me happy. But I can see because, truly the Demery family places a heavy emphasis on family.
Yeah.
I know this.
Mm-hmm.
And you know this, and this was something like, so she doesn't want him to feel to like get in that it's very honored thing to be invited into your family. I know because your father said to me that
Yeah.
I'm an honorary part of the family now. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a move. It's a very significant event. It's a move. So
Right.
it's something to be taken not lightly.
Oh, yeah. Not at all. And Sweetie and Lou very clearly approve of Bill. There would be some challenges, but that's about it. Like, he's a
Well, they're
nice
not getting
guy.
married to him either.
Mm-hmm.
So they like him on the level that, of course, they would
Mm-hmm.
like him. He seems very
Yeah.
likable. And Jeanne obviously, did like him at one point, but it definitely does not seem like there's really much there anymore.
There's a big delay here. Things are taking a little too long. That's the sense I get from it. If it takes this much time to know for certain, but Sweetie's going to continue with this line of thought for the rest of the letters in the episode today. So we'll let Sweetie give her great narrative of how that is.
At any rate, I do not intend answering that letter until I hear from you. I've tried to keep preceding letters on a casual basis, but I want to know what you think about it. Now, please do not fail to write about this, as I say, I'll wait a letter from you before I answer his letter. I'm sending you some pictures that we've taken over an extensive period of time. We took them with Lou's little camera and sent them off to have them developed. We thought they'd be a little more enlarged, but c'est la guerre. We had the two of us at the Carey Memorial enlarged, and they're pretty good, but I'll not be able to send them along. Lou starts wearing blues today. From the washing and ironing viewpoint, hooray. But I'm afraid the weather will get warm again, and they'll be uncomfortable. I wrote and asked Mom to send down my winter clothes, too. The fair, Kansas State Fair no less, opened this morning. We didn't go out, didn't think we'd have much time. I walked uptown with Lou when he went to catch the bus, and I stayed to see a double feature, Passage to Marseille and Buffalo Bill. They were both good, but every movie is twice as good if Lou is with me. I'm sure he'd have liked both of these. He has duty tonight, so I not only had to come home alone, but I have to stay alone all night.
Yeah, so she's catching up on her movies.
Mm-hmm.
And then I like that she notes that Lou starts wearing blues today.
Yeah, what's that mean?
So normally we have the white sailor uniform. So she's thinking about all the washing she has to do to keep everything clean. Now he's wearing navy blues. So maybe he can get away with a little bit more. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect because things kind of blend in, And he's working on engines, right? So like the grease and things like that, the stuff he's working around blends in a little bit more. So it should be a little easier on her to handle the cleaning of the clothes. But it's interesting that this is only coming up in September. Maybe that's in the fall. Maybe he's had a more permanent assignment at the base or something like that. She kind of implies something's going on there, but he's able to start wearing the blues, which is nice.
By the way, tell your friend, whoever he may be, that not only do they have a college here, but they have a finishing school for boys too, more officially known as the Kansas State Reformatory. Incidentally, there was an escape last week. The siren wailed for 15 minutes. I don't know how many of them got away, but they've not been caught yet. Yes, I do lock the door, and I even put my head under the covers, though I might be safer if my face showed. Shut up. The pictures are not for keeps, just for looking. When you're through with them, do send them back. No news from home. You write soon. We think of you lots. Will that help the mail? Love, Lou and Sweetie.
Yeah.
That was so cute. When she said, she knows exactly what Jeanne was going to say. Like, she's like, I'm hiding under the covers, but if they saw my face. Yeah. Like the two of them go together. So cute.
Yeah. And then we get the jailbreak, the actual jailbreak.
Mm-hmm.
So Kansas State Reformatory is in the nearby vicinity, and she can hear the sirens wailing for 15 minutes. So this is a confinement center that's in her immediate vicinity, and there was an escape. So they're all staying home. And yeah, we just get this interesting scene of that going on. So she mentioned in a previous part of this letter, Cary Park. And I think it's good to mention here that Cary is one of the major salt mining companies. So Hutchinson, Kansas is known as the Salt City. And I was able to find some old postcards that have the imagery, some of the imagery of what Hutchinson was like prior to that time period. I believe these postcards are from 30s, at least from the 30s, 20s, 30s. They're older for sure, but we can see a little bit of what these places looked like. So I'm going to go ahead and open up some images just so we can see a little bit of Hutchinson now. And especially as Sweetie's strolling around the town somewhere, I think it's important that we also get a view on like some of these locations. So this looks like the main downtown, little park in the downtown. There is a waterway running through of the convention hall. Beautiful spot, I love this old sort of federal brick style. This is very reminiscent from where I am in Bucks County in Pennsylvania, but that's very federal, right? The columns, and then the white awning, and then you get the red brick behind everything. So I thought that this was a nice little picture of a section of the downtown, because if it's the convention hall, it's most likely close to the downtown. But then we have a couple images here of the salt mines. Now I'm going to start with the one Morton. So people remember, this is the Morton picture. People remember the Morton Company, right? You've seen the little girl with the umbrella on your salt can.
Blue canister.
Yeah, the blue canister. I'm pretty sure this is it. So this is a massive operation when we're talking about salt mining out in Kansas. So the largest salt plant in the world at the time that this picture was done, this is the Morton Salt Works. There's something amazing about the whole building being whitewashed.
Yeah.
Right? That it's not just like brick and it doesn't look like another place. Like, yeah, that looks like salt could be there. It's the color of it even.
Well, and most likely the salt was causing some dust deposits. Like, probably this is keeping it like his dress blues don't show grease as much.
Yeah, don't visit this, when you're wearing your blues. Yeah, for sure.
The white, I'm sure, doesn't show as much. But yeah, and also it's just like it. I think that definitely fits for a salt.
Oh yeah.
Salt plant.
Yeah, I didn't know what to expect really when they said there were salt mines going through, but it's neat to see a handful of these because this city was so well known for it. And then of course we have reference to Cary as well. Here we go. And she mentions Cary Park. So here's the association. So look at this.
Wow.
Same kind of imagery. Huge. I have to imagine smokestack in the center. Very, very, very tall. I mean, if the dimensions are correct here, like the roof of the main building, the I guess it's the smokestack is what 3 to 4 times the height of the building. So this is going to stand out on the horizon. I think if I'm right, these kind of look like windmills on one of the sides. The fencing, I mean, you're going to see this on the horizon for sure.
Oh yeah.
And this is the Cary salt plant. So you can kind of compare it to the one you saw of Morton. I don't think these are the only ones, but these are obviously some of the major ones for Hutchinson, Kansas, the Salt City. And the other interesting thing is that Cary is still in operation. And they have a website, which I have up on the other screen. We can kind of just explore that just a little bit here. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, so we get to, if you go to, I'll put the address in the description of the video, and I'll also put it up on the screen here. It's Cary, Carey, salt, SALT. So all one word, carysalt.com. Pretty easy to remember. And they've got some history here of the salt company, but it talks about Hutchinson. The earliest date just on the first page is 1901. So this was here for a long time, but it's got current products and things, and you can navigate around their website and go into some of their history if you really want to look at some of the information about the mines. And their products are salt, it would seem, iodized and plain. Yeah. Hey, salt's important. So there we go.
Salt is important.
It's a flavor enhancer. Yeah.
Yes. Well, and it's also necessary for life.
Mm-hmm. Necessary for life.
It's necessary for your metabolic functions.
Mm-hmm.
You can't overdo it. Just like anything, it's the poison is in the dose. So.
Yep.
But this is very interesting. It's like, and we're because Hutchinson, like you said, it's not very well known. So we're getting all these like little.
Yeah, these little pieces of information, and I love that from coming up. Now, if you're at the Cary Salt Company and you'd like, you appreciate that little shout out from what it used to look like to your current website, and you'd like to sponsor the podcast. I'm just kidding. Call us.
So, and this podcast sponsored by.
In Pennsylvania, I don't believe I've seen your salt on the shelves at the grocery store. So you could send some samples. Maybe we'll review this. I don't know how you review salt. I really don't. I don't know how to compare it. It would be very difficult. But it is essential for life.
A little bit more iodine in it. I don't know.
Yeah, I have no idea how to tell that, but I respect that you do. And we appreciate that. It's really great to see. Here's the big thing. This is a very service-driven economy in the United States. We don't produce as many products nearly as we used to, let alone just the industrial materials and like the raw material, I guess we would say, of products as much as we used to. In Pennsylvania, it was all coal and steel. It's nice to know that salt is still being mined in Kansas and still in production today, that it's not coming from elsewhere. Because prior to this podcast, I wasn't even thinking like salt was being produced in the United States, but it is. So, it's really great to see that we do have that industry. And I'm sure it's a lot of jobs in this area, and there's legacy. I'm sure there's generations. It's from 1901. They're still open today. There's probably generations of family that have worked at these salt works, the ones that are still operating. So it's just really good to see that, like, made in USA.
Yeah. So we only have one more letter today.
We have one more letter today. And this is the big one, really, of this episode. I would say so.
526 East 1st, Hutchinson, Kansas, September 22nd, 1944. Dear Jeanne, I've just written to Bill a none too good letter, but at least passable. It has been warm here too, and in spite of your good wishes, Lou has been hot in his blues. He gets warm, perspires, and then takes off his blues and puts on his dungarees and works, and as a result has caught quite a chest cold. We doctored him with ASA, sulfathiazole, that Daddy sent us last year, and he got some rest. We've just about got it licked. Thank goodness. I have an unquenchable urge to scold at you. I don't quite know why, but...
Okay, before we get into the but, we're just going to lead into the rest of the letter. In these letters, especially as we move forward in time, as Sweetie gets further away from her father, Chester's going to send medicine to Sweetie and Lou as things come up. This is going to happen a ton of time. There are a lot of medicine names here that we have no familiarity with 80 years later. Also, modern medicine might frown upon some of the things that they were prescribing 80 years ago. So as we go through the story for all of our listeners, and I know everybody should have common sense with this, it's probably not a good idea to go look for sulfathiazole if you're ailing from a chest cold today. First of all, I'm not sure if you'd even find it at the stores. I'm not sure if this would be prescribed or anything like that. So as we get to these names, and there's going to be a lot of names of medicine coming up in future letters, this is clearly part of the sulfa drugs family. And there's a whole story of sulfa, which was kind of like the miracle drug during World War II. And there's a whole history there. That's going to be a lot of future content coming up. But none of the information in these letters should be taken as medical advice. As much as Dr. Demery is a really good doctor.
He's a really good doctor.
Yeah. Like if I was, if he was still around and, I was able to talk to him and he said, oh, could just do this. That'd be very, very different. But there is an 80-year time gap here. And then again, if you are in the medical profession and you're listening to this now, well, now you get a great dose of medical history to devour and show your friends, be like, this is what they were prescribing, this is what they're getting. No idea as to what this is. I've seen like the bottles, of course. People, how people collect like little medicine bottles from the past. This is probably one of those items as well. But yeah, sulfa is going to come up, but please, nobody take anything ever expressed in these letters as medical advice. Please see your doctor and consult with your doctor. As good as Dr. Demery was, yeah.
What makes you think that by going to Lacona, you'll be able to make up your mind about Bill? Go home. The trip will do you good. But don't go home with the idea that somebody else is going to make up your mind for you, whether you will or will not be married. If you do that, you are, as you just put it, a bird-brained 16-year-old. Where do you get this stuff about doing things without becoming irritable? I get irritable towards Lou when I'm tired, or if I just feel plain ornery. Of course, I realize that there are so many more things that you must do for Bill that must be taken care of, but don't you think he'd be considerate of your feelings? Lou is so nice, though, that I'm ashamed as soon as I've been ornery, and I have to make amends. I believe you're magnifying all this about not getting along for a long time. Of course, you can step into any situation with ease, and there's no reason why it cannot be pleasingly enduring either. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not encouraging you to get married. I'm staying on the fence on that score. I'm just telling you that you need a little self-assurance that shouldn't be hard for you to conjure up. Listen to the folks. They can give you good advice, but I don't believe you should let them do your deciding for you. The decision is yours to make. You mustn't say, if only I had listened, or if I had done as I wanted. You know what I mean, don't you?
Yeah, well, my favorite part is when she says, I have an unquenchable urge to scold at you. I don't quite know why, but, and it has been in my experience, and I'm sure the experience of many listeners, that anything that comes before that but,
yeah,
it doesn't mean anything. She knew exactly what she wanted to.
She knew exactly what she was going to say. And now she's like, do not pass the buck on. The Harry Truman phrase, right, coming in. Do not pass the buck over to mom and dad to make this decision for you. Like, don't just go to Lacona and be like, hey, I need someone to tell me what I think I should do. And I love that she says, I'm staying on the fence. So she's just sitting on that fence. I think she's used that phrase in the past before. She's like, nope, this is you. This is you. And the most important phrase of the letter, the decision is yours to make. This has come up before with Jeanne had a relationship with another individual named Bob a while ago. I think she wrote a very similar letter at that time. And now we're seeing it repeat itself again with Jeanne. The difference is Jeanne's now, I think, getting desperate enough to go ask her parents what to do, not just Sweetie.
I try to pretend Lou and I aren't married, that I'm looking at him once again, single, making up my mind. It seems silly. All the indecision and bickering I went through seems so far-fetched and silly. I never made a better decision, or one that has brought me nearly as much happiness. I don't know. I'm not much help, but I'm sure happy, and I love Lou so much that I have difficulty picturing your dilemma. Be sure to write and tell me what the folks have to say about everything.
And for our audio listeners, it's so important to note everything is underlined. Like, don't leave anything out. Yeah.
And this is when Allison transcribes. And listeners, I have to tell you, I've seen some of the letters that she's had to read to transcribe. And she has such a job ahead of her, but she's done beautifully with it. She doesn't add things to the letters or take things away. Anytime anything's underlined, it's because
it's from Sweetie.
It's from Sweetie. And this means a lot. This means a lot. Oh man. This is very heavy. This is a very heavy letter. And I can sense, and I think if we remember back to when she was thinking about Lou, and she did go through a lot, but sometimes I think it's necessary to like really truly explore. And it seems that Jeanne is quite serious about this guy, if she's exploring, her thoughts and her feelings this much.
We went out and walked at the Kansas State Fair. They called it that, but it was nothing like the state fairs we went to so many years back. We had fun, but I think Lou was more fun than the fair. We giggled and watched other people being robbed by the skin games. Last night Lou had duty. I didn't get home till 9 this morning. I washed and ironed today, and even cut off and hemmed Lou's jumper before he went to work at 3 p.m. One of the girls who worked at the station in Ottumwa, her husband was transferred here, and she's going to come here and visit him over the weekend. So in the morning I've got to clean house. I was going to do it tonight, but I'm kind of tired, and I wanted to write some letters. Still not spent much time with one, but I've got to kind of whip things up. Lewis will be home at about 1 or 1:30, and he'll wake me up for a small snack, so I'll have to quit now and get more letters written and get to bed as early as I can. Take your time about making up your mind, and be sure the decision is your own. I love Lou more and more and more. You'll never find a husband as nice as mine. Love, Sweetie, and Lou. We had a letter from Mrs. Corey saying Betty had at last carried out her threat and left home. She sounded very blue and depressed.
Oh, we got a Betty update.
We did get a Betty update right at the very, very end, and we can see Mrs. Corey still writing to Sweetie there in Kansas.
Oh, and she left.
She left. They had gone to San Francisco. That's the last we knew. So I'm assuming that the family's still in San Francisco, but I'm guessing she's 18 at this point, and she's like, see ya, and leaves.
Oh, Betty.
Yeah. So, but more on that in the future. We'll have to see what happens with Betty, but definitely still a relationship there with the family generally. But she's just really reaffirming everything. Jeanne, you have to make this call. You really do. You can't have me making the decision for you. You can't have Chester making it for you. You can't have Laura making it for you. Who knows who else Jeanne's writing to? Is she writing to, she's going to Lacona to talk to her parents. Is she writing to Margaret? Is she writing to Frank? Is she writing to Bob? Now they're overseas. Is she writing to Maida? Is she writing to Florence? She's probably writing to a bunch of people.
And there's people in her personal life as well, like who are closer. This is a very serious decision. It reminds me back when Sweetie was trying to make that decision about Lou. Yeah. But she came to that decision a lot quicker.
Yeah. Oh, she did. And then she adds that little tag at the end. You will never find a husband as good as mine. Like, ooh, okay. Like, yeah, everybody's different, but he's still the best. She's shouting out with Lou there, which is really, really fun. But we still have an uncertainty here. We have to end the letter. We don't know what's going to happen yet between Jeanne and Bill, if she's going to move forward or if she is going to decide to end things. And we'll have to leave that for a future episode.
Yeah. So maybe, I guess we'll see you guys all next week.
Yep. We'll see everybody next week. Bye.